Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Low Calorie Cooking Basics. This is the show where I teach you the tools and tricks and tips that I've learned over the years for how to cook and eat on a calorie budget. This week we're taking a look at a few more popular and common foods you'd find at the grocery store and how a few simple decisions when you're there can make a big impact on saving you some extra calories. So we're just going to go one by one down the list. I'm going to show you a few alternatives and things that I would recommend. All right, so first up we have just plain old potato chips. They come in at 160 calories a serving. There are a lot of ways to get that same sort of satiation and craving taken care of from a lot of lower calorie options. The first and easiest one, take a few extra minutes when you're in the chip aisle and look for just some lower calorie chips. There are a lot of different options for this, so I'm not talking about any specific brands. But if you look, the Ruffles here are 160 calories a serving. I found these Popcorners, and these are 120 calories. Usually you're having a few servings whenever you're gonna have chips. So this is just a really easy way where you're not really sacrificing and you're not changing to anything extreme. Just a different brand of chips is gonna save you a quarter of your calories. So that's kind of the easy replacement. I did have a couple of other things I wanted to bring up though to save even more calories. I don't know if you remember the other week I made a recipe for spicy garlic zucchini chips. Swapping any sort of snack foods with vegetables is always a great way to save on basically all of the calories you'd normally be eating. But the zucchini chips are really, really delicious, and they're crispy and they're actually chips. A big portion of those is something like 20 or 30 calories. So you have a few different options if you are really craving chips and that's kind of your weak point in your diet and you keep blowing your daily calories because you're having too many. Look for some lower calorie chips or make your own zucchini chips. They're super easy. I'll be sure to link the recipe. Next up, we have a really bad offender. I talked about this in a previous episode of the series about why it's important to track your calories, and a few of you had brought up salad dressing being another big one. Sauces and dressings are notoriously high in calories. It's important to really take your time when you're at the grocery store, look at the different nutritional labels, because you can save just so many calories if you just take a couple of extra minutes out of your day. For instance, this is really delicious ranch right here. It's 160 calories for 2 tablespoons though. That's on the high end, but a lot of creamy dressings are going to be very similar to that calorie count. If you take a few extra minutes, you can find something. I've always been a really big fan of this Newman's Own ginger sesame dressing. Obviously a different flavor, but you have 30 calories versus 160 calories. Don't mind Wolfie. Oh, Wolfie wanted to come in because he is a big advocate for saving your salad dressing calories. So just really take your time and study the nutritional labels. Another alternative, if you really like ranch and creamy dressings, you can make your own pretty easily. My wife makes her own spicy ranch with fat-free sour cream and then ranch seasoning and a little bit of sriracha. Super low in calories. I think a couple tablespoons of sour cream is like 25 calories. So that's another way if you want that creaminess and you want that creamy texture. If you don't like any of the low-calorie dressings at the grocery store, you can make your own really easily. All right, next up we have ice cream. We have 4 servings in this little pint, and each serving is 250 calories. In the last few years, with companies like Enlightened and Halo Top getting more popular, there are more and more low-calorie ice cream options in just about any grocery store. You can eat this whole pint for the same amount of calories as this single serving, which is only a couple of bites. So you can have a whole pint or you can have a couple of bites, and it's the same amount of calories. And this just reinforces, like I said, taking that time at the grocery store, especially when you're new and starting off. It really saves time in the long run too, because now I know, that Newman's Own ginger sesame dressing is only 30 calories. So I don't need to study every single week when I'm going to the store. I just need to have a little bit of planning in those early stages, and I can use that for the rest of my diet. All right, so next up on the list is bread. Bread is delicious, Bread is usually pretty high in calories, but if you take a little bit of extra time, you can see there's a wide variety of calorie counts for the different breads at just about every grocery store I've ever been to. This is one I really like because it's really high in fiber, and I also am eating at maintenance right now, so I have quite a few calories. So I actually had this in my pantry already, but this is 110 calories per slice. It's, it's tasty, but it's super high in calories. I've lived in Michigan and Oregon. Any grocery store I've ever been to is usually going to have an option or two for a lower calorie bread. The Sara Lee bread's only 45 calories per slice. You can have 2 slices of this bread for less calories than this bread. You don't have to completely omit bread from your diet. You can make these easy changes, still have your sandwich for work, or still do whatever you wanted to do and not have to go without because it's bad for your diet. I did my best for this entire list of foods to not take the cheap route out of just saying to eat vegetables instead. A lot of these, if you're trying to save on calories, there's a vegetable version of just about everything that you can eat. I did my best to avoid that with finding lower calorie chips and lower calorie ice cream and different things like that, but there is one vegetable replacement for pasta that is totally worth it, and that is spaghetti squash. If you remember, I've made a couple of different spaghetti squash recipes on the channel before. It is delicious, it's relatively cheap, you get a ton of volume for the calories. This is a very easy swap and replacement in my opinion. I'm sure a lot of you are like me, where when you're having pasta, it's more about the different flavors from the sauce and the spices and the meat, or cheese if you put cheese on your pasta. So this has been just as satisfying of a replacement most of the time for me at something like 10 or 15% of the calories. But that is gonna be it for this week, everybody. 5 easy changes you can make at the grocery store to save on a ton of calories. Really hope you enjoyed this one. I'd love to get a discussion started below. What other changes do you make, or what brands do you recommend for lower calorie versions of things? Let's get a good discussion for everyone. We can keep this as kind of a good haven for all of these swaps. I'd love to hear what you swap and what you recommend. But as always, be sure to subscribe if you're new. I put out new videos every Monday and Friday, and be sure to like the video if you enjoyed this. Helps me out a ton. But until next time, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good one.